Of you who do not know me, I am Steve Gilman with RB Technologies and have been serving as your chair of the board of directors for the last couple years. Your involvement in the chamber is deeply appreciated. Without you, the chamber would not exist or have purpose. Your continued support and involvement is crucial to the economic vitality of the region. For me, it was an easy decision. Be involved with a local organization dedicated to the betterment of Central Vermont's economy. If the local business community is vibrant and successful, there are far-reaching benefits to all of us when you take a look. You just have to follow the trail. During the past year, your chamber staff, volunteers, and directors have been very busy. Some of the highlights are the chamber had its highest new membership enrollment since 2009. Chamber membership renewals exceeded both our estimated and adopted budgets. The Chamber Advantage was established for new members for chamber services. The Chamber worked with local businesses to defeat local option taxes once again. And recently, the Chamber recruited over 90 local businesses to participate in the Central Vermont Online Savings Book, again with a shopping local focus. And the Chamber has also continued support of the communities of Montpelier, Barrie, Barrytown, and Berlin, who are working together on the feasibility of a regional public safety authority. All this and much more would not have been possible without you and the invaluable chamber staff and dedicated volunteers. I would like to express gratitude to my employer, Ruben Bennett of RB Technologies, for allowing me the time to serve, and now would like to thank outgoing chamber directors whose terms are expiring. So please help me recognize the following individuals. And if George could help me out. We have Tim Ross, Northfield Savings Bank. Tim, if you could come up. Nancy Zorn, Green Mountain United Way. Nancy, if you could come up. We have Mike Donovan from WSNO, Frank Froggy FM. And Bob Lord Jr. with E.F. Wall and Associates, who's also a former board chair. To close, I am very grateful to have served as your board chair over the past 2 terms and for the generous support and encouragement from directors and staff. It's been a great journey, one that I will reflect back on and be proud of. It is a great feeling to give back to the community that I was born in, raised in, and make a living in. Thank you very much.
Those of you who know Steve know that he's totally self-centered, always hello, very self-centered guy, always thinking of himself. So we tried to figure out what kind of gift can you give to somebody who's always wrapped up in himself. Very facetious for those of you who do know him. There have been a number of great presidents who preceded you. There are a number of great board chairs yet to come. But you have the distinction of being the one, and presumably the only ever, to serve as president and board chair. And we have So we have a token of appreciation that we hope reflects all of the things that are most important to you, Steve. Mr. Donovan.
And good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to be able to present to you the slates of directors and officers for this coming year. And just a thought that whisked through my head while I was sitting there, and that is that for those of you who are unaware, the roots of this organization are back in antiquity, because this actually kind of came from an organization called the Barry Board of Trade that was existent in the early part of the last century. So the roots are quite old. I would like to present the proposed slate of directors, and the way the bylaws work is the membership elects the directors elect the officers. So our proposed slate of directors, we would ask them to stand if they would, are Leslie Sanborn of R&L Archery, Leslie; Byron Atwood, DMS Machining; Curtis Ostler, Norwich University; Gary Haas from The World; and Jim Breer, Better Home Inspections. There's our proposed slate of directors for the coming year. I would call for a motion to accept the slate as presented. Motion is made by Donna Bate. A second? Second by Steve. Any discussion to the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The slate is elected. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Now, if I may, and George referred to it a moment ago, and that is that this is the first time that we have really changed the verbiage on how the officers are defined, adopting the policy of many, if not most, of the organizations in the country. The title Executive Vice President has been changed to President. The title President is changed to Chair, and Vice Presidents are changed to Vice Chairs. So we have a slight nuance as far as the labeling goes. Our proposed slate of officers for the coming year, and again I would ask them to rise, as Susan Crothers from Central Vermont Medical Center as our Chair. Leslie Sanborn, Vice Chair. Heather Scholdice, Vice Chair. Cody Patno from Noel Johnson as Vice Chair Treasurer. And George Malik from the Chamber as President. I would now call for a motion for the acceptance of the slate of officers as presented first. Okay, moved, seconded. Okay, and I would call for a vote by the directors on the slate as submitted. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? There being no opposition, the slate for 2013 is elected. Thank you very much. And now, if I may, I would like to call on our new president, Susan Crothers. Susan.
Good morning, everybody. I'm so glad we have a great attendance here this morning because I think we have a terrific program that everybody's going to really enjoy. I want to thank the board and the nominating committee for giving me the opportunity to serve as chair for the coming year. I think it's going to be an exciting year. I think that Steve's shoes are going to be hard to fill. And I also see some other past board chairs here, Bob Lord and Marion Milne. Marion Milne I've admired for many years when she was a legislator and when she was the board chair here. So I have lots of good people to follow. And I want to thank Central Vermont Medical Center for giving me the time to spend with the chamber and my staff, many of whom are here today, and thank them for the pieces they're going to have to pick up when George wants me to go somewhere, to a meeting or to a ribbon cutting or whatever. I think that in addition to being a busy and challenging year in the economic realm, I think it's also going to be a fun and interesting year. We have a great board, and I just, all my life I've collected quotes that I think are really interesting or meaningful to me in some way. And I wanted to read one to you that kind of made me think of what this next year is going to be like. This is by ballerina Margot Fontaine. The one thing I have learned over the years is the difference between taking one's work seriously and taking one's self seriously. The first is imperative and the second is disastrous. So I think we're going to take the chamber business seriously, but I think we're going to have a lot of fun. So I look forward to this next year. Thank you.
Hi, good morning. I'm Curtis Ostler from Norwich University. Let me just set up my PowerPoint here, if I may. So it was interesting. I had a moment there where, I was preparing for this and making sure everything's in place and the PowerPoint and thinking about what I'm going to say. And Mike announced, my stand up, and then there was the vote, and I thought, holy cow, what if I get voted down? I've got to stand up here for 45 minutes in front of you people and talk. So, so that worked. All right. So I'm not going to talk about myself. I'm here to talk about this topic, but just briefly to put everything into context so that you understand my perspective. I'm a director of corporate and foundation relations at Norwich University. What that means is I connect with businesses, and I'm a fundraiser primarily, but I also connect businesses to the school. But I'm new to academia. I've only been working there for almost 4 years. My history is really, and my career has really been in business management, project management, and ultimately in sales. And sales and the way I go about it, and project managers is a sales job as well. And to me, it's a very, very hands-on kind of, you go to the businesses, you go to the offices, you shake hands, you make eye contact when you're talking to somebody, you look and you see, are they wearing expensive shoes? Really, the things you really want to kind of figure out in the body language. Those are nice shoes, by the way. But, so it's old school, think Mad Men, but without all the scotch and cigarettes, okay? That's kind of the way I approach it. What we're going to talk about today, though, is there are some new styles. There's a new generation of people and a new generation of technology, and that's really what what I'm going to be talking about today. I want to introduce you to some of those and get you to understand them and embrace them, engage them. It's important to do. So, basically, to give you, I'm going to give you observations. I'm not a sociologist, I'm not a clinical researcher, not even a college professor. I know people, I watch people, I understand them. So these are observations, they're my observations. There's nothing clinical or exact about them. I've certainly gathered a few things from other sources, and I'll present some of those to you. And my apologies if I don't reference some of the sources that I've gotten, but I'm just trying to give you an overview to sort of, get us into the future of commerce. So that's really what I'm talking about. Not going to be talking about religion, not about government. Certainly we have this next generation coming in that are going to make changes and all sorts of things. But we're the Chamber of Commerce, so this is about commerce. I'm talking about business. Right now, some of the sociologists are saying that we're unique in history, where we have a fully of 4 generations in the workplace. Where in the past, certainly we've had some very older folks working and owning a business, then we've had some young kids, flipping burgers and that sort of thing. But right now, we really have 4 generations that are actively involved and decision makers and working together and collaborating. So just to kind of get a perspective here, who in the audience, raise your hands please, who was born before 1945? And I'll understand if some of you don't want to raise your hands. We'll assume that there are a few, but we've got 3, 4, 5, 6 people. You're the silent generation. Now, and I'm not making this up, okay? This is I'm taking this right from what the sociologists have been saying. There are 4 general generations that repeat, century after century. But in this case, the silent generation, you folks grew up during the Depression. You saw World War II. You went through a lot of hardship. It was a tough life in a lot of ways, and now things have been getting better and better over the years. But you're the silent generation because you did not complain. You trusted your government. You knew that your company was going to have the pension there when you retired. Let's skip all the way to the other side for now. Who was born after 1985? Again, we've got 3, 4, 5 people here. Most of them I brought with me, by the way. They're Norwich students. So because I did want to kind of stack the deck a little bit. Okay. So you're the millennial generation, also called Generation Y or Generation Next. I'm going to be talking about you folks, the few that raised their hands just now. In between that, we've got 2 generations, but I'm going to group them all together. Everyone raise your hands, please, if you were born between 1945 and 1985. Now look around. Okay, this is almost the entire room. And this is very important, as I want you to understand. I'm talking to you. Okay, I'm talking about them, but I'm talking to you. Okay, so we've got 2 generations in there. If you were born between 45 and about 63, you're the baby boomers. And between 1964 and 1985, that's Generation X. I'm a cusper, which is the people that are born kind of on the cusp. I'm just about in between. Technically, I'm a boomer, but I think I'm more of I tend more towards the Generation X style, which, by the way, we're also called the slackers. Okay? And if you wonder why, just see the movie Dazed and Confused. It explains a lot right there. So we're talking about the new generation, okay? Obviously, a lot of people are concerned. They see young kids, their changes, doing things differently, wearing different clothes, everything else. So what is different about the new generation? Okay, is it their music? Sure, music's different. Clothes, yeah, clothes are different. Technology, definitely, and the technology I'll get into later. Very big difference. But really, what are we talking about in all of this? We're talking about an attitude, okay? That's really what I think defines a generation, is what is their attitude. Now, I've heard a lot of people in Vermont and locally in businesses, talking about what they think of the new generation, but Vermont's small population, so I wanted to go more nationally, figure out what are people saying about the young people and the new generation. So I went to Time magazine. I went to Time because that was what my dad subscribed to. That was like the magazine of choice for national news. It was always the fresh issue on the coffee table. Until 1979, when Time magazine named Ayatollah Khomeini as Man of the Year. He canceled his subscription, never subscribed again. That's another topic for another time is, consumers vote with their wallets. My dad was actually very good at that. So anyway, I went to Time magazine, and I found some quotes for what people were saying nationally. So here's a few. You may not be able to read them all, so I'm going to read them off here. Staked out their own mini society. Unappreciative of the society that supports them. Living on our shores, but beyond our society. Ooh, very poetic on that one. But notice for these 3, we're talking about society. We're talking about how do they fit in or not fit into society. A couple other comments. Alienated. Uncommitted. And how about this one? A red warning light for the American way of life. There's a shot across the bow, huh? So I see some heads nodding and see people, maybe you're agreeing. What do you think? This is the line that came up more than once. What's the matter with kids today? Okay, in the issues that I found. Definitely more than, that's the line. What's the matter with kids today? Does that sound familiar? I'm talking mostly to you baby boomers because you're a little bit further away than the millennials than we are. Well, it should sound familiar because I got this from 1967 Time magazine. This issue was on hippies. Okay, also 1967 Man of the Year was anyone 25 and under. That's Bob Lord in junior high right there. So that's right, boomers. They were talking about you. Okay, those lines. Things don't change very much, do you? And as far as my fellow slackers go, I don't want to see any smug smiles here, okay? Because, they were talking about us as well. And slackers, we gave the world Sid Vicious and the Sex Pistols and Beavis and Butthead, okay? So it's kind of humbling. So, don't think that, we knew what was going on. They didn't know what was going on, all right? So let's look back at this one. A red warning light for the American way of life. They were talking about us, okay, back in 67. So they thought, okay, society is going to end. We're going to be the downfall of civilization, right? But look around. Look at all of us here. We've got business owners. We've got presidents, vice presidents, directors, managers, supervisors. Did we turn out so badly? Not really. Certainly different. We brought in some changes, but is different bad? Not always. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's great. So now what you have to look forward to is this new generation. They are going to bring some changes in. They're going to be different, without a doubt. But think about it. Think about where you were at their age, what people were thinking of you, and now where they're going. So what is different, really, with this new generation? So the Pew Research Center did an excellent study. They published it in February 2010. It's called The Millennials, A Portrait of Generation Next. You can get this free online. It's a PDF copy. It's, you can read through it. I would really recommend it if you really want to find out about what the next generation thinks, how they compare, and so forth. But a few key points of what they came up with here. Next generation is confident. They think they can do it, no problem. We can step up and do what needs to be done. They're self-expressive. They have no problem telling you what they think. They certainly have no problem putting, YouTube videos on there and posting some things maybe they shouldn't post, but they have no problem speaking out and speaking in favor of themselves and others. They're upbeat. They're definitely, excited. They're frankly, having worked at Norwich, I find them exciting to be around. I find a lot of incredible energy coming out of this generation. They're connected. Now this is a big one, and we're also going to talk about this a little. I'll talk about this a little bit later. They're connected definitely to each other, but also to the world through the internet, through email, through Twitter, Facebook, whatever. They really are connected. They know what's going on. They're very much less of an isolationist sort of group. And most importantly, they're open to change. Okay, because business does change. Things are going to change. They're not resistant to it. Certainly as we get older, we all tend to be a little more resistant to change. But they're really embracing it. On my own observations, that was all from the Pew Research Center. My own observations, I see three key points that define them as a generation. They're inclusive. Okay, they include everybody. They're much less likely as a group to say, what's in it for me? They're more likely to say, all right, how can we all get what we need out of this? Which is a wonderful thing. They're involved, very involved. If you look at voter numbers and how, what the new generation has done to influence voting, very important. Also, I'll give you an example. At Norwich University, we have the Center for Civic Engagement, which is the volunteer arm of the university. So if students want to volunteer, that's where they go. 85% of our students volunteer in some form or another through the Center for Civic Engagement. I'll tell you, they didn't get that from my class, okay? 15% would have been great on the other side. But 85% of the students, volunteer in one form or another. Most importantly, I think they are egalitarian. They are equality-minded. This group, and again, the groups are generalities. Doesn't mean that everyone's going to be one way in one group and everyone's going to be another way in another group. But in general, they are much less likely to judge people based on race, religion, national origin, what language they speak, sexual orientation. They tend to include everybody, especially, and I think this is very significant, I'm going to focus on this, genders. Okay, because if you think about it, women's role in the last century, we need a lot of work here. 1913, 100 years ago, women didn't even have the right to vote. They were literally second-class citizens, which still amazes me. It's like, this isn't Cro-Magnon era. This is 100 years ago. Okay, we had telephones and cars, but women couldn't vote. So then in the both world wars, World War I, World War II, women were asked to go and fill in these jobs when the men left to go to war, which was great, and they did it, usually for about half the pay, but they went in, they did it, they did their duty. Men came back, it was like, okay, thanks, we don't need you anymore, they were sent back. If you look, it's improved, certainly. Look at 1970. This, by the way, is from the Wall Street Journal. This was published just, I think last month sometime. 1970, about 5% of the nation's lawyers and 10% of the nation's doctors were women. This was back in an era when, remember the term male nurse? Okay, this is a term that frankly I would like to see wiped from our lexicon, because what it implies is that women are supposed to be nurses and men are supposed to be doctors. But it's still a term that you'll hear frequently. I mean, my doctor is a woman, and I just went to the hospital about a month ago, and both nurses that dealt with us were males. So this shouldn't be I'd like to have this wiped out of our lexicon. Can I get an amen on that? Okay, thank you, yes. So let's get rid of that term. Okay, so 20 years later, it's improving, 1990. We're up to about 21% of the nation's doctors and almost 25% of the nation's lawyers. And now, 3 years ago, we're about a third of the nation's doctors and lawyers are women. This is great. This is good. It's not great because this doesn't mirror the number of women in the workforce, but we're getting closer. But this is the generation that is going to change that and is the most likely, because I really think they don't see gender in the same way. There's not a set role or a limitation that way. Does anyone know who this is? I'm going to use sports here as a lens. I'm still talking about the woman's role and the improvements. This is Babe Dietrichson-Zacharias. Name sound familiar to anyone? No. And yet, in my opinion, she's one of my heroes. And in my opinion, she's the greatest athlete of the 20th century. Nobody's ever heard of her because she's a woman. If she were a man with the things that she'd done, it would be amazing. I mean, she would be Alexander the Great in our minds. This is a woman, she's known mostly for golf, but she was born before women can vote. She picked up golf later in her career. She actually played in men's PGA matches 60 years before Annika Sorenstam and Michelle Wie did. She was great at baseball, basketball, swimming, diving, track and field. But this is the point I want to get to. In 1932, she won 3 medals in the 1932 Olympics, 2 golds and a silver. But you think, okay, with all of those great accomplishments, how could she only win 3 medals? Because she was only allowed to compete in 3 events. Because at the time, you see, the medical experts knew that women didn't have the constitution for that kind of endurance and for heavy activity in sports like that, so they shouldn't be encouraged to overexert themselves. Yeah, obviously the guys that came up with that never gave birth, all right? So let's jump ahead about 35 years. This is late 60s. This is Vermont College, right here in Montpelier. Vermont College women's basketball. Now, aside from the cute uniforms and little pennies, if you count the number of players, you may not be able to see this, but there are 6 players on each team. Because at that time, and this is in the 60s, and this even in some states went into the 90s where they had a special women's basketball, you had 3 women on offense and 3 on defense. And they were not allowed to cross half court. Why? Because women should not overexert themselves because they don't have the endurance, they don't have the constitution. Didn't know that one, yeah. See, Mike was there. So, I am really happy to say that women's sports have changed. This is the Norwich women's rugby team. We'll get more to them in a minute. Norwich basketball, in fact. So that's basketball, okay? You can dribble, you can drive. All right, so Norwich women's rugby. This is my personal favorite example of women in sports right now. In collegiate sports, men's and women's rugby, they play by the same rules. And the rules in this case are that there are 2 40-minute halves with 1 5-minute halftime. And they don't go off the field. They stay on the field in a circle and talk to the coach and get yelled at. And then you go back on. There are no timeouts, okay? And the women, they get to sub, I think, seven subs per game maximum, which means at least 8 of the women are playing the full 80 minutes, straight through, nonstop, tackling, kicking, running, passing. By the way, this right there, that's a scrum hat. It's actually a helmet. It's flying through the air, you'll notice. So I've got someone here that can tell us more about mostly her generation, but right here, this woman right here with the smile that says she's really enjoying herself way too much. Okay, this is Emily. Emily, can you come on up? So Emily's a senior at Norwich. She's the captain of the women's rugby team, and she's also a cadet lieutenant colonel in the Norwich Corps of Cadets.
Thanks, Coach. Good morning, everyone. As Coach Ostler said, I'm captain of the women's rugby team. We've racked in 3 national championships in the past year, going for another one in April, and I think we're going to bring it home. As well as the Corps is concerned, I've brought one of my company commanders with me here, Nick Berry. He's a captain in the Corps. As a battalion commander, yes, please. For those of you who don't know a whole lot about either the military or Norwich itself, as a battalion commander, I have under me about 315 cadets. I'm in charge of 3 separate companies, which Barry's in charge of one of them. My right-hand man is a sergeant major. He's a junior. And I answer to one person who's the cadet colonel. Great guy this year. I'm a senior in Army ROTC. I'm going to commission in May as an aviation officer. I'm going to be a helicopter pilot for the United States Army. I'm also a major. I major in construction engineering with a minor in business and a minor in engineering science. Many things, and I'm not, unfortunately, as much as I'd like to say it, I'm not that one special female. I actually have a ton of friends who major in engineering. 5 seniors commissioned as aviation officers, and 2 of them are females. I have a Marine Corps buddy who's going to be a jet pilot for the Marine Corps when she commissions in May. As well as Norwich University has 5 battalion commanders, 3 of which are women, just like me and my classmates. I thought it was really funny when Coach Ostler sent me an email and said, hey, I'm going to be speaking at the Chamber of Commerce. I'd like you to come down and say a couple of points for me. And I'm like, about what? Like, what do you want me to talk to them about? I don't know them. And he said, here's my PowerPoint. And he ran through this and showed me a couple of things. And I was like, are you, really? Like, this is something that needs to be brought up? This is something we talk about? And I hope Nick will agree with me here that when he was called up and said, hey, want to be a company commander, Emily Bogus is going to be a lieutenant colonel. He's like, sure, yeah, no problem. Yeah, that's awesome. She's my friend. Good to go. And it wasn't a question, and I like it that Coach said we're very accepting. Many of the things I know are obviously very military oriented, with the passing or the getting rid of the don't ask, don't tell policy, with the bringing of women now being able to be in combat arms units. We had a class discussion the other day in my Army course about, okay, guys, what do you think? What do you think about women being able to do this? And I was actually a little nervous about what everybody was going to say, and the guys were like, whatever. Like, it's cool. They do it anyway. It's no big deal. And I was like, really? That's what we're talking about right now? No, nobody. It's not new. And I laugh because I'm 21 years old speaking about this, and if I have your structure right, your president is also a female, which is awesome. So you're not completely behind. Don't worry. We'll catch you up. That's what we're here for. That's what we do. I also have a bunch of friends going into the workforce, becoming huge names in companies and things, and I don't think anything of it. And I like to call this our generation with the intimidation factor, is that if my boss is actually a colonel in 06 in the United States Army. I walk in, hey sir, how's it going? When most people at my age in past would be like, oh Lord, he's an 06, maybe I should watch what I say, and all my words have to be bigger than 7 letters, and huge things like that. And we don't think like that. We're comfortable. We are confident in ourselves, and I definitely am, being able to stand up here and speak in front of all of you, and it's an honor to do so. But we're going to come out with some great things, and people say, you know, what is wrong with these kids? And I'm like, who are you calling a kid? I'm 21 years old. What are you talking about? Just completely baffled that somebody would say something like that. Almost offended, but it's many things that we're going to come in with, and you're always, I'm sure many of you have kids, and my mom's telling me stories, well, when I was your age, and I'm like, I really don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear that. Uphill both ways in the snow, no shoes. I got it. We got it. We have cars. We have snowshoes. We have a lot of really cool things that we can mitigate that with. And I'm sure that when I'm older and I have kids, I'm going to say things like, you know, when I was your age, I spoke to the Chamber of Commerce, and I was talking about my cell phone, and I was talking about the women's rugby team, and lots of fun things like that. And I could see us just continuously to progress with us, the generations as they come. And I feel like at 21 years old, if I can accomplish something like this, I feel like in 10 years, people are going to be doing what I'm doing at age 18, at age 17. That we're becoming, we're growing faster as a society and as generations. And I feel like we will continue to do that, that people look at somebody's potential and, well, you're not going to think I'm going to get worse from here. You know, it's only going to continue to go up, especially at this age. So I really appreciate you guys letting me talk to you, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, the weaker sex, okay? Can we get that one out of our lexicon as well, please? Okay, along with male nurse. Can I get an amen? All right, thank you. Thank you, Emily. Excellent example and everything I wanted to show to you folks. So one of the things that Emily's generation has, one of the advantages they have is the technology. It's not their technology, however. They did not invent it, but they did grow up with it. And that's very important. And for many of us that, learned computers after we learned other things. I actually learned a slide rule. Just as I learned the slide rule, we got calculators. Thank God. Okay. But, but it was new, and that was an easy step. But for some of us going to the technology, it's tricky, So you look at the internet. Obviously, they didn't invent the internet. Al Gore did. But well, okay, maybe that's in question. But they did grow up with the internet. I don't think any of the students here today have ever known a life without access to the internet. Nick, could you stand up for a minute, please? So Nick Barry, captain in Norwich Corps of Cadets. So Nick, you have a smartphone, right? So by the way, I'm borrowing this idea from Peter Diamandis. I don't know if any of you saw Peter Diamandis speak at Norwich about half a year ago. Fascinating guy, but he made this point. I'm borrowing this from him. I'll give him a little credit there. So Nick, that cell phone or that smartphone, okay, you hold that up. In Nick's hand, he's got a device that actually gives him better and faster access to worldwide information than the FBI did in the Clinton administration. Okay, so that's how fast technology has gone. He's a senior in college, and he throws it in his backpack, in his pocket, whatever. It's no big deal. Thanks, Nick. Email. I think you probably had email all of your lives, haven't you? Emily, when did you have your first email address? 9. Yeah, I got my first email address when I was 39. Okay, maybe even later. And cell phones. Where's Shannon? Shannon. Shannon's also as a civilian student at Norwich, a senior. She's in the architecture department and also working with the Solar Decathlon, which is a great project. If any of you are interested, look it up online. It's NUSD 2013. It's Norwich University Solar Decathlon. Great project that Shannon's working on. So Shannon, you have a cell phone? Okay, so in Shannon's cell phone, using the same thing that I talked about with Nick, she now has better access to worldwide communications than General Schwarzkopf did during the first Gulf War. So again, this is only 20 years, and huge, huge jumps, and they think nothing of it. Thanks, Shannon. So, the technology, it's there. There's another thing about technology. With many businesses, there's no such thing as distant or local. Okay, suppose you're a proofreader and you want a job proofreading for a company in China that they can write technical manuals, but they're not really sure of Americanisms and they want a proofreader. You could live in Vermont and proofread for a Chinese manufacturer. Why not? They just send you an email with an attachment, you look it over, you make your edits, you send it back. Done. There are so many businesses like that. So many ways in which technology has made the world smaller. Now, also for many businesses, web presence is not a luxury. It's really a necessity. And I'll give you a quick example. I used to work at Wall Goldfinger for John Wall, a great guy. I know many of you know John. Just moved down to Randolph from Northfield. I was working for him for about 10 years. When I started there as a project manager, we had a wall that was probably the size of this, not the whole screen, but maybe the size of this slide right here on the wall. It was all binders, and binders of every product that we purchased. Companies that had their binders on the, companies had their, sent us their binders every year, had to update their binders. They had to professionally photograph them, get all the pricing in and so forth. We had binders for everything from veneer to screws, nuts and bolts, to adhesives, to graphic arts. Anything we bought, it was in one of those binders on the wall. And those companies, as I said, they had to completely update those binders constantly and send them out to us every year. Salesmen would come out, take the old one, and put the new one in place. About 2003, so this is 10 years ago, we looked at that wall and said, let's throw it all out because we don't use it anymore. And the reason being is all of those companies, any of those products we wanted, they were all available online, and usually in a much better and much more up-to-date fashion. There are two sides to this. One is if you didn't have a very good website, you're probably going to lose business to the company that had a better website because we'd go on and we'd research new ones all the time. But most importantly, if you didn't have a website at all and your binder was on that wall, your business was gone. We didn't go back to the binder and go looking for a binder. We went online, and if it wasn't there, it wasn't there. So this is something that's very important, I think, for many businesses, that your web presence is very important. It is the very modern communication tool, and it can be updated. It can be very robust. Is Greg Bance here? No. Okay, Greg was going to be my speaker on talking about some of the technology. And I'll get to social media in a minute, but, well, actually, I can segue into social media. Do you have any college football fans? How many of you watched the BCS championship game? A few people. So the game was a rout. It was Notre Dame and Alabama. It was, 52-14. ESPN is showing the game. And, ESPN has customers, not us, by the way. ESPN's customers are Gatorade and Bud Light and Toyota and Bud Light and Bud Light. So those are their customers, but they need us. They need the viewers to watch the show to keep the customers happy. Now with a route, people start turning off, or they're sitting on the couch and they've got the bucket of chicken wing bones and the empty Bud Lights, and they're or they're reaching for the remote and they're changing channels, and they don't want that. Well, at one point during the broadcast, sometime in the first quarter, they showed this picture of two people in the audience. One woman was the girlfriend of the Alabama quarterback, who happened to be Miss Alabama. Very beautiful woman. The announcers went on and talked about, how gorgeous she was and what a lucky guy he was and so forth. Cut away back to the game. So she has a Twitter account. Of course she does. She's Miss Alabama. She had 550 followers before she was shown on television. After that, she had 10,000 followers on Twitter. Now, ESPN is a smart company. They're seeing, customers, remember, viewers going away, customers not being happy, second half of the game. They have people that follow this. They followed and they realized, her Twitter account just skyrocketed, so people were watching her. They cut back to her I don't know how many times during the game. And this was a big issue where people were complaining, why are you talking about this woman all the time? Why don't you watch the game? Well, nobody was watching the game. By the end of the game, she had 100,000 followers on Twitter. So obviously it worked. Now this is a much bigger venue for this. Our kinds of businesses, we won't be doing this. But if you think about this, this is a multi-million-dollar program. And they had people that made a real-time decision on the fly, live, to make a change, a subtle change in their program to try and keep those viewers there. So it's very impressive. That's one of the things you want to look at, is the power of not just the web, but also Twitter and some of the social media. So let's talk about social media. I like LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a great tool for business. I recommend to everyone get on there, get a picture on there, get as much as you can on there. It's the new resume for many people. Some people are saying they don't look at resumes anymore. They just go to your LinkedIn account and see how many endorsements you have and what kind of recommendations and what did you do before, because it's all right there open to the public. So I would highly recommend it. Then you have Facebook. Most people agree that Facebook is more of the social, more of the popularity. LinkedIn is more business. And mostly that's true. Certainly some of the stuff I've seen on Facebook, there's no business there at all. It has maybe no business even being there. But is it just for personal use? I don't think it is. I think there are some possibilities here. If you are a business that relies on popularity, that follows trends, that uses trends and really tries to push out there, this is a great tool. Now, is Keith here? Keith. There he is. Keith, can you come on up, please? So as an example of that, we've got Keith Paxman, from co-owner of Cornerstone Restaurant, Cornerstone Pub and Kitchen in Barrie, and he's going to tell us a little bit about their use of Facebook to promote business.
Good morning. Before I begin, I'm going to go ahead and make a Facebook post. Today actually marks 3 months that we've been open. So I'm going to put, today marks 3 months of being open. Thank you for your continued support. Post. Hopefully I have service in here. All right. We'll see what happens over the course of the next 5 minutes. We found Facebook to be very interesting. When we started to create what is now Cornerstone Pub and Kitchen, we at first were like, okay, let's go in. We're going to develop this tap room, pub, upscale, kind of casual food, place where people would come in, sit, have a beer, hang out, maybe get something to eat. And so we started posting on Facebook. That's how we introduced ourselves. First we introduced ourselves to our friends and then said, hey, come to our Facebook page, like us, start to follow us. Well, we started this 6 months before we actually opened our doors. And over the course of the 6 months, we ended up with 1,500 people following us before we served one dinner. And it was interesting because what we originally started out to do morphed into something completely different, and has morphed into what we are today, which is a restaurant. We didn't really start out intending to be a full-on restaurant. Like I said, we intended to be a tap room that served good beers and some good pub food. But throughout this, our Facebook popularity kept growing and growing and growing. We started out, our first day we picked up 40 people. Then the next day we're up to 100. By our first month, we're up to 300 people. And people started getting excited. Both my business partner and myself were from Barrie, born and raised. And we were opening something new, something that was fresh for the community. Especially going through the whole downtown revitalization project. And I think creating a pub gave the community something to latch onto. It's easy, I think, to feel a sense of ownership with a business like this because it's a business that people frequent on a regular basis. So, especially with Facebook, people kind of became part of the pub before we even opened. They could go to our Facebook page and they could see pictures. We put pictures of construction going up. So people started getting excited and the signage would go up. And then all of a sudden, we posted a picture. My chef, my business partner, myself, my wife, went to our house and we decided to do pan-seared scallops one night with a butternut squash risotto, and we took a picture of it and we put it on our Facebook page. And within 20 minutes, we had about 75 responses. Oh my God, this looks great. We can't wait for you to open, blah, blah, blah. And then from there, people were telling us what they wanted. So we went from originally wanting to be just this tap room, serving, some good burgers and maybe doing like scallops or something like that, into something different, and it's what we are today. I mean, we serve anything from chicken wings to filet mignon, but that wasn't the original plan. It really all morphed because of Facebook. And the other thing that we did is when we were going through our branding process, it allowed us to get our brand out there. If that's the 2 cups and the fork, it was, we had somebody create this brand for us, and it was something that we wanted to throw out there. So when you saw it, you associated that with Cornerstone Pub and Kitchen. So we started putting that all over Facebook. And, like I said, our following kept growing day by day by day. And it was about a month before we opened the doors. There's this little beer festival out at Mad River Glen called Septemberfest. Well, I'd had some shirts made up, and I gave them to my wife and our kids and my brother-in-law and his girlfriend and my business partner, and we all had our shirts on. Well, I didn't say anything. It was just the logo. So we're standing in line waiting for the festival to open up, and this guy looks over, and he goes, "Hey, Cornerstone." He's like, "I can't wait for you guys to open." And that's when I realized, I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. We're not even open yet, and people already know who we are. And like I said, by day 1, we had 1,500 people following us. As of today, I think we're almost at 2,400 people. We're getting about 4,000 views a day, 4,000 views a week, almost 600 views a day. So what we use Facebook for now is to alert people with what's going on. For example, last week it was 15 below. How many people want to go out to lunch on a 15 below day? Well, not many. And not a lot of people at lunchtime come in and sit at our bar. So my business partner said, all right, that's it, I'm going to go on Facebook and try to drum up some bar business. So we posted on Facebook, okay, come in today, sit at the bar and get 50% off your soup, salads, and grilled flatbreads. Within 15 minutes, we had 8 people sitting at our bar who all said, hey, we saw your Facebook post, we thought we'd come in. That's like, before that, we just drummed up $100 worth of business for what? For nothing. It was a post, it's free. I mean, anybody can create a Facebook account. I do think social media and Facebook and things such as Twitter and LinkedIn, you could probably do a full hour seminar just on that. It's something that, we could probably utilize it better than we do right now, because it is one of those things where you really do need to stay on top of it, and you need to kind of update things regularly. Now, it should be daily, but even a few times a week. Let's see. Some other interesting facts that I can pull off from our Facebook is I know that 69.3% of the people that like us on Facebook are female. I know that 19% are between the ages of 25 and 34. 21% are between the ages of 34 and 44. I can see that 864 people are from Barrie, 164 from Montpelier, 151 from Burlington. So I can track where there's even a couple people from Kenya. That's fantastic. And one from Iran, Indonesia, Denmark, France. So it's kind of cool. I can see where people are following us from. It's quite the commute for dinner. It's flattering, but it's definitely been a fantastic resource for us, and I do think it led to kind of the early success of our business, because we were able to generate incredible amounts of buzz before we even opened the doors. Let me kind of revisit my post. So since I posted that, it's only been a few minutes. Only 8 people have liked it. So it's kind of. Oh no, sorry, 21 people have liked it. I've had 21 people like. I've been standing up here for how many minutes? 5 minutes. Oh, my time's up. No, it's So in the past 5 minutes, I've had 21 people see my post and give it a thumbs up. Who wrote, "That's a handsome coat you're wearing"? I like you. I liked you just yesterday. I agree. Nice coat. Yeah. So obviously there's a couple people in the room that have been following us. which is pretty cool. And another interesting thing, it's sometimes it's kind of stalkerish, For example, I was pumping gas one day, and my business partner and our manager went skiing at Sugarbush, and they got to the top of the mountain. They took a picture of themselves at the top of the mountain, posted it on Facebook, and of course, we had a whole bunch of comments throughout the day. Well, the next day I was getting out of work. It's 11 o'clock at night, and I'm pumping gas at 11 o'clock at night. And there's a guy standing there, and he goes, "So did you guys have a good day on the mountain yesterday?" And I'm like, "Sorry?" He goes, "Oh, I follow you on Facebook." I'm like, "That's crazy." So, like I said, it's a great way to, in a free way, to kind of promote your business and be able to get, branding out to starting up a new business or specials. I think it's a great way to kind of drum up business. And, if you're not into Facebook, I'd highly recommend to looking into it. And hey, thank you guys for the supporting, for the likes out there. But thank you very much.
Thank you, Keith. So it's interesting to know he also brought up another topic about timeliness. Look at the data that he's able to generate. This is stuff you would have spent thousands of dollars for a research firm to do. And if you think about when you send out mailings, for instance, once you send out a mailing, it's gone. You have no idea what happens with it. When I was at Wall Goldfinger, we sent out emailings, and what was fascinating is you could send out emailings, of course, with links to your website, which is what you want, and links to different stories and so forth. The fascinating thing was the data mining afterwards, is you could look at this later and say, okay, we sent it out to 3,000 people, and 2,100 people opened it, and 700 people forwarded it on, and 800 people opened this article. Nobody opened that article. This is immediate information that you can use. It's very valuable. Last thing I want to talk about, I have one more speaker and just a few more minutes here. I want to talk about working style. And this isn't just limited to the millennials either. This was kind of started along with Generation Xers. So let's go about 100 years back. There's an office. Yeah, that looks fun, doesn't it? This is the kind of place where not only do you watch the clock during the day, you can hear it tick. It's going... Okay. Yeah, that's really fun. But it's okay. In the 70s, we fixed this. Yeah, that's much better. So what's interesting is here we have a bunch of coworkers. Are they co-working? Are they working together? No, they're all isolated. They've all got their little computer on the left side. By the way, left-handed people need not apply here. If you notice, they're all right-handed because that's the space on the right there. So, but Generation X came up with some new creativity and realized that, a creative workspace is one that's going to be more productive. And I've got a couple of examples here from the Google offices. A little dark here, sorry, but that looks like a cool place. I could sit there and have a nice meeting there. It looks like a meeting, a conference room. I like that. That's interesting. The boat is not exactly my style, but again, it's kind of free. There's a creativity there. Yeah, well, sometimes when it comes to trends, what you want to do is you want to let the pendulum swing all the way over and then catch it kind of when it comes back. I'm not exactly sure what these are, but this is a nice looking space. In fact, I've sat in this space and it is indeed very comfortable. Here's another space, the same group, and I've got Lars, there he is. Lars, can you come on up? So this is Local 64. This is one of the events they're having here. But I'm going to go back to this one again. If you look at this, these are people that are not co-workers necessarily. Some may be, but they are co-working. And here's Lars Hasselblad Torres, who's the founder of Local 64, which is right across the street, by the way, and he's going to tell us about that.
Thanks, Curtis. Good morning, everybody. So yeah, it's great to see a picture up here. I feel at home. Just to explain what's going on here, we are a co-working space above Delish on Main Street. You guys know where Delish is? The candy shop? Good. So we're on the second and fourth floors here. During the day, we're a hive. What that means is independent workers come in and they're doing their work, whether they're architects, whether they're designers, game developers, mobile app developers. We have people who are part of the 42 million strong independent workforce in the United States today. That number is expected to hit 50% of the workforce in 2017. These are people who might work for a standard business, but it's out of state. They don't have a footprint in Vermont. They also might be setting up their own business, they're early stage entrepreneurs. Or they might be freelancers, free agents, as Daniel Pink calls them, part of the free agent nation. So this is a trend that's growing. And co-working is a solution to break the isolation that many of us experience as we're working from home in coffee shops, places like that. So we offer 3 sort of value propositions at Local 64, which is the name of the business I started. The first one is, get out of the home, break the isolation, end the distraction that can interrupt your workday. You'll be more productive if you're working in a shared work environment like this than you are at home. And this is borne out not necessarily in data, but in anecdotal evidence, by what people say they feel about their work style when they're co-working. The second thing is, help people make connections. When you're an independent worker, one of the hardest things to do is find people like you, or people with skills that are adjacent to your skills. So if I'm a web developer, maybe I need a really great user interface designer. Where do I find them in Vermont? It can be very difficult if I'm working in isolation from home. So we try to help peers find each other. That's the second value proposition of co-working. And the third is to extend those skills out into the community. How do we take people who really understand how to use a new tool like Facebook and use that to develop effective campaigns for their nonprofit causes, to sell more product online, what have you. So we do a lot of workshops. This is actually what we call Pitch Kitchen. This guy, Chris, who's talking, back to the camera, is pitching a new game that he's developed. Anybody heard of the game Swamp Talk? Okay. Justin has. Justin's everywhere. Justin's been a big supporter, by the way, of Local 64 since we opened our doors. So thank you, Justin. Swamp Talk is a great game. It's for iPhones and iPads. You can download it at the iTunes store. And it's kind of like Scrabble, where you build word combinations and develop sort of a score based on the value of the points you've accumulated. What he's doing is he's rehearsing his business pitch. He needs to go out there, make the case to financiers, VCs, whomever, that he's got a company worth investing in. One of the most difficult things for startups today, where the bulk of your value is tied up in intellectual capital, is to translate that into hard cash to grow your business. So he's working on his business plan. We've got Joe from the Office of the Creative Economy. We've got probably Justin in there somewhere. We've got people who understand business and how to grow business, helping Chris get some insight into how to develop a more effective business plan. So what we're trying to do is build a community that really supports Vermont's sort of creative and entrepreneurial ecology. So that's what we're about. Come drop by. We're at 5 State Street, second floor.
Thanks. Thank you, Lars. Keith, would you mind joining Emily over at the table here? I'm just going to wrap up quickly. A couple of things. We're not going to have a question and answer period. I know that you've all got businesses to get back to. We're not going to take too much time, but our speakers have agreed to stay and answer any individual questions you may have. And I'd also like Shannon and Nick to come on up, if you wouldn't mind, please. So what I'm going to tell you is, we talked about the technology. Embrace the technology. Okay, it is really good for you. There's some things that it can do for your business that are fantastic. If you will not or cannot embrace the technology, hire someone who can. Okay, there are plenty of people coming in that it is completely second nature to them. So I just want to recap the millennials, okay, and what we've talked about, but not even what we've talked about, just who are they right now? Well, you have to think about this. They're your new employees. Okay, they're your new crop of employees coming along. They're your new customers. All right? You got to look towards the future. They may not have the bulk of cash right now, but you've got to start planning for them. And they're your future business leaders. They're going to be your vice presidents, your directors, your managers in 10, 15, 20 years. And they will bring some new technology, some new ideas, some new methods into the workplace. Some of it might not be good, but most of it is going to really improve the business, and it has that potential. One of the things I want to say about the millennials, I talked earlier about the 4 generations and how they recur. Sociologists are saying, okay, there are these recurring generations. Every 4th generation, it has the same sort of tendencies. Well, the silent generation, the folks born before 1945, actually it was kind of between 25 and 45. Before them, so anyone born before 1925, they were called the greatest generation. They're the people that actually took us into, or drove us out of the Depression, worked through the Depression, rationed, did whatever they had to do, fought in World War II, stayed home and built the planes in World War II and rationed gas and sugar and really brought us out of that. That generation, that every fourth generation, sociologists call those the heroes. They're the ones that bring us out of our problems, that really fix what needs to be fixed. So if you do the math now, we had the British generation, those are the heroes. Then we had silent, then baby boomers, then Generation X. We're back to the millennial generation, who are projected to be the new heroes of our society. They're going to give you these new ideas and promote our business, our country, everything else. And really what we need to look at is they are the future of commerce. Thanks very much.